even get to cross.
What's going on, everybody? Jolts here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with my Week 7 battle of the GBA D-League. This week we are against PaPaSea and the New York Klinks. If you haven't already seen the team builder for this battle, make sure to go check that out. It'll be linked in the first line of the description below as usual. Also, make sure to check out my opponent, who will also be linked in the description below. Very cool guy, strong content creator. I believe he's had a lot of success in the NPA and probably in other leagues as well, as he is very solid. Unfortunately, not doing too well in the GBA D-League this season. That is highly attributed to the fact that his draft was not great initially, but now, given some of the transactions he's made and the fact that he's just quite honestly been playing better, he is getting closer and closer to getting that first win. So he is certainly threatening this week, especially considering the fact that his team, his draft is stacked with really powerful offense, including things like the Manaphy, PaPaSea, Excadrill with the Sand from the Gigalith, as well as a Mega Pidgeot. All of these are things I don't switch into particularly well, so definitely a threatening defensive matchup for me, but I do feel like I have some good offensive threats and offensive options against him as well. So to start things off, let's take a look at this team preview here, as my opponent PaPaSea decided to bring the Gigalith, Excadrill, Sylveon, Tauros, Manaphy, and the Weezing. 4 of these mons were very much so expected, 2 of them not so much. So the 4 that were expected was the Sand Core between the Gigalith and the Excadrill. Gigalith is nice defensively versus Torrentee and potentially Mega Kangaskhan. Excadrill is just amazing against me offensively. Manaphy is a freaking powerhouse and scary mon, and Weezing is essential for him in this matchup because of how it's the only thing on his team that really deals with Scolipede and is able to effectively deal well defensively with a lot of other things on my team. Now, the 2 other Pokemon I expected to see in the Sylveon and Tauros spot were something like the PaPaSea Mega Pidgeot. Those would be the more offensive options he could have decided to bring here, but the Sylveon does make a fair amount of sense to come. The Sylveon is probably his best response bar Gigalith for the Torrentee. The Tauros is a little bit surprising to me, I'm not going to lie, but the fact that he brought it tells me that it's probably going to be a Choice Scarf variant. It makes the most sense. I don't really think he needs the breaking power of Life Orb Tauros when he has the Excadrill and the Manaphy that can pretty much on their own break through my team pretty well. So initially I am kind of thinking this is a Choice Scarf to Tauros at team preview, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. But my game plan moving forward is to break down the Weezing, because by breaking down the Weezing, I have a Scolipede that can potentially win this game in the back. So very briefly, let's go through my sets. I am bringing a Shuka-Berry, Stealth Rocking Taunt, Dual Stab Cobalion, able to effectively deal with a Sand Core, get up rocks, deny rocks, and essentially just be a nuisance against this entire team, and assist in breaking down that Weezing for the Scolipede. Next up I have the Scolipede, which is SD, Protect 2 attacks, allowing me to be your late game win condition, as well as a Revenge Sweeper if he happens to be Z Rain Dance Manaphy, or even if he is Scarf Tauros. This would allow me to outspeed the Tauros at +1 and effectively check that. Then I have a Zoroark, which is Choice Scarf with Dark Pulse, U-Turn, Sucker Punch, and Memento. Memento, of course, to help my Scolipede set up that sweep. I can Memento down in this matchup versus the Sylveon, versus the Excadrill, versus the Tauros. Those are the 3 things I am most likely going to be able to Memento on. I don't really trust myself in terms of Mementoing on a Manaphy. I think I'd just get Scald Burn, so there's no real point in trying that. And versus the Weezing, he still has access to Will-O-Wisp, of course, and the Gigalith gets very powerful rock moves off a very high base attack, so I don't think I'd bother with that. But the other 3 I might be able to Memento on. Definitely something I'm eyeing late game. I have the Mew, which is full Fizz Depth with U-Turn, Foul Play, Psychic, and Roost. It's effectively my counter to Excadrill and Sand. As long as Mew is at full health, then the Excadrill should not be able to 2-hit KO me with an Earthquake unless he is Adamant Life Orb, and if that's the case, I still have a good chance to survive, as long as Stealth Rocks are not up. So Mew is very essential in terms of being a defensive win condition in this game. And then I have the Torrentee Assault Vest with enough speed for Manaphy, so drop down a lot on the speed. Didn't bother outpacing Tauros because I thought it would be Choice Scarf if he brought it anyways, and that allows me to be a very good check to a Z Rain Dance Manaphy, which could come in clutch depending on what his Manaphy set is, of course, but it's also a nice switch into the Weezing to just gain some momentum on that, to annoy him with knockoffs a little bit, and etc. It's running Hurricane, Focus Blast, U-Turn, and Knockoff in this match. matchup. And then finally have the Mega Kangaskhan, which is designed to lure in the Weezing and essentially get rid of it, as I am running the Workup, Facade, Sucker Punch, and Earthquake to deal really well with all of his team. Basically 1v1 whatever his potential, whatever his response to Mega Kangaskhan happens to be. This Kangaskhan should be able to 1v1 it, and at the very worst, grant me a double down. So that's the team I'm bringing here for this week. In terms of the lead matchup, I'm fully expecting him to lead with the Gigalith, just because it matches up well against everything on my team, with the exception being my Cobalion, so I'm going to counter lead that just in case. I really think Gigalith is likely for his lead because of Stealth Rocks, because of matching up well against everything, and because it sets the sand immediately for his Excadrill. So let's go ahead and hop right on into this and see if we can improve ourselves to a 5-2 record. Currently sitting at 4-2, still in third place in the playoff picture, but losing this game would be very, very bad in terms of long-term success, so we need to be able to win this game to keep ourselves in that commanding position of a playoff spot, as he does decide to lead with the Gigalith as we lead off with the Cobalion. So immediately what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a taunt on this Gigalith, expecting him to try to get up his Stealth Rocks immediately. I do not at all expect him to go immediately for an Earthquake. I think that is a play that he could make, but he definitely has Stealth Rocks on this Gigalith, like absolutely. It's just a perfect move for Gigalith in this matchup, so I expect him to go for that on that turn. That's what he does. Now here I'm going to pull a cheeky, aggressive switch into my Torn T, expecting the Earthquake, or expecting him to double into his Weezing, which would otherwise be the likely switch into this. And if he were to go into Weezing, I might have been able to get a knockoff off against whatever his switch in might be, which might have just been this Gigalith later in the game. Or, obviously, if he keeps the Weezing in, I can knock off the Rocky Helmet, and on the Weezing that I am expecting to see for the Mega Kangaskhan to beat it defensively, or to at least check it defensively, and that would make my Kangaskhan's job much easier later in the game, as I'm just going to U-turn, as he decided to leave his Gigalith in, and basically scout out what the rock move is that he's going to go for, which happens to be Rock Blast. So, definitely a good bring on his part. If I were like a Charty Berry on my Torn T, that could have gotten me there. So here I'm going to just go for, I believe, another taunt as he goes, or go for an Iron Head rather, because he was still taunted, as he goes into his Weezing. So getting a little bit of chip damage off on this. Potentially I could have gone for a Stealth Rock on that turn, and maybe in hindsight that might have been an okay play that I maybe should have gone for, but I should be able to get my rocks up later in the game versus things like a Sylveon, maybe again versus the Gigalith in a later scenario, as I do anticipate seeing that scenario come up several times throughout this game, and spoilers, it does. So here, I'm going to be able to go straight to my AV Torn T versus this, as I don't really care if I get burned. I don't want anything else on my team to really get burned, and he does just go for that Will-O-Wisp. But one thing that is interesting here is the Weezing is revealed to be a Black Sludge instead of the Rocky Helmet. So now I'm sitting here wondering, what is his response to Mega Kangaskhan? I don't know what his response is. Surely he would bring a Rocky Helmet or something fat enough to really deal with it, but if this Weezing is his response to Mega Kangaskhan, and his way of dealing with me is to burn me, my Kang is going to have a lot of fun in this game. So we'll just see how this goes, as he's going to pull the switch into his Gigalith on my Torn T, which I thought was pretty obvious, so I do just go for the U-turn, expecting that, and this way I'm able to get right back into my Cobalion and essentially continue to deny Stealth Rocks on his side of the field. I feel like that's very important, as the longer I can keep my Torn T at a high amount of health, the better, versus a potential Z Rain Dance Manaphy, which is very, very threatening when it gets up +1 speed. As here he goes straight into his Manaphy on my Cobalion, which I thought was very interesting. I was thinking maybe he was expecting the taunt, so he can just go straight for the Z Rain Dance, because that would of course break through the taunt, and that would potentially get him in a solid offensive position. So expecting that to be the situation, I'm going to go straight into my Torn T as he goes for a Scald. Now this Scald damage reveals that he is uninvested in special attacks, so now I'm thinking, okay, is this maybe like a Crow Manaphy, maybe Calm Mind, Scald, Energy Ball, Rest, or just expecting the Seismitoad, or maybe just flat out called they wouldn't bring the Seismitoad, and so he's just going to bring Mono Scald with Rain Dance, Calm Mind, and Rest. Maybe that's the set. But here I'm just going to U-turn on the Manaphy as he reveals to be Rocky Helmet. So that's interesting. Very nice prep on his part there for sure, as this means that he was able to bring the Black Sludge on the Weezing, which basically just means he's able to have longevity from the Weezing as well as still having to switch into Kang. So definitely smart prep on PaPaSea's part here, but I'm still going to go into my Kangaskhan regardless of the fact that this is a Rocky Helmet Manaphy, and that's because I still think I should be able to 1v1 this, as he's either going to be able to burn me with a Scald, and I can do a ton of damage to him with a Facade, or if he doesn't burn me, then I'm still going to have a +1, and the combination of an Earthquake and a Facade from my Kangaskhan should be able to take out the Manaphy from the range it is at after all that damage. So here I am just going to go for the Earthquake. And as you can see, it's going to bring the Manaphy from about 90% down to about 50%. So that's a clean 40% of damage. It should be in range of a Facade now, regardless of if he gets the burn on this turn, which is perfect. If I can trade Kangaskhan for Manaphy, that is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. This is one of the 2 biggest offensive threats against my team. Despite the fact that he clearly brought it more defensively, it's still a massive threat because it could easily still have a setup move of some sort. So being able to get rid of this Manaphy here with the Facade is very, very nice. We're going to be sitting at a 5-5 score, but I'm still happy with my position because he has not been able to get rocks on the field and Manaphy is gone. Now here, expecting him to again go into his Gigalith on the double down, I'm going to go into my Cobalion because I'll be able to once again deny stealth rocks on his side of the field, and very soon I should be able to get my own on the field as well, which will mean I'll be able to start chipping down faster at that Weezing that I really need to chip down in order for my Scolipede to be able to win later in the game. So I am just going to go for the taunt, as I believe he gets me on this turn and does just go for the Earthquake. So I think he's going to kind of give up on going for the Stealth Rocks against the Cobalion, finally noting that I'm just not going to allow it to happen. That's simply my game plan. It's not going to get up those Stealth Rocks in the face of my Cobalion, as he does very minimal damage with the Earthquake due to my Shook Berry. I'm still actually outside of range of another Earthquake, so I'm pretty free to just go for an Iron Head. Maybe he'll get the flinch. Regardless, if he goes for the Earthquake, I'm going to be able to live that anyways. But what's actually funny here is my early play of switching my Cobalion into my Torrentee on this Gigalith actually conditioned him into thinking I might try to continue to make that sort of really risky, cheeky double, and it actually causes him to go for a Rock Blast on this turn. So we take those. That's pretty awesome, as now he is going to switch his Weezing out switch his Gigalith out into the Weezing, expecting my close combat. So good play on his part. He was able to catch me going for the CC, as now I'm kind of left out to dry. Basically have to switch back into my Torrentee, which isn't the worst thing in the world, because even if he pulls a double into anything else on his team, I should still be able to U-turn on it, get some chip off, get some information about that Pokemon, and adapt from there. As I am going to go into the Torrentee, as he does not pull a double. He leaves his Weezing in, and he goes for a Flamethrower, trying to catch my Cobalion here, as after the -1 in special defense, I was probably in range of being taken out by the Flamethrower. So here, now I believe I'm actually going to go for the knockoff, expecting him to try to pull more of a middle ground play into his Sylveon, or potentially even leave the Weezing in, expecting me to go for a U-turn. I really thought that the middle ground play here was a little bit smarter in going for that knockoff. I really didn't expect to see the Gigalith come in here, because if I were to U-turn on the Gigalith, I'd be able to go right back into my Cobalion, and that would mean that the Gigalith is probably in range of an Iron Head at that point after the U-turn damage. So he does make the switch into the Sylveon, and actually reveals to be a Kebia Berry, so getting rid of that is definitely nice in terms of winning the game with Scolipede later in the game. And because he did bring Sylveon, I didn't really mention this earlier, but I was somewhat expecting him to be Kebia Berry, just because, like, you kind of have to. I have a Nidoqueen, I have a Scolipede. If you bring in Sylveon, you have to be Kebia Berry straight up, as I'm just going to go for a Hurricane here to scout out how much damage his Hyper Voice is going to do, and the damage reveals to be definitely a more defensive Sylveon. If he was offensive, it would have been taken down much lower. Probably close to death, actually, but I still thought that it was a worthwhile Hurricane to go for, as being able to weaken down the Sylveon is pretty essential in terms of obviously getting rid of it later in the game, as otherwise it's a pretty annoying Pokemon to deal with. As here, I am just going to pull the switch into my Cobalion, expecting him to go for a Wish. And I don't think I went for a U-turn. I probably could have gone for a U-turn on that turn, but I didn't, I just didn't. So anyway, I go into the Cobalion on the Wish, and this will give me a free opportunity to put up my Stealth Rocks, as I'm expecting him to go for a Protect if he has it, as he actually pulls a switch into Kirishima the Gigalith. So that was a very risky switch on his part, but it does work out because he was likely to be able to survive the Iron Head from my Cobalion at that point in time. But what this tells me is the Sylveon probably does not have Protect, meaning it's basically going to be useless the rest of the game. So that's kind of nice. As unfortunately, Gigalith gets back with the full health, but he does not have his Sand up based upon the sequence of how this played out. So that's nice. Going to fish for a flinch here with my Iron Head, because I'm still outside of range of an Earthquake from this. And once again, he goes for the Rock Blast, trying to catch my Torrentee. So he really wants to get rid of that Torrentee, but works for me, as now my Gigalith is actually, I believe, still going to be likely outside of range of an Earthquake from this Gigalith, despite the fact that I'm, I believe, at like 50 or a little over 50% right now. I think I'm still outside of range of an Earthquake, so Cobalion's very fat, and being able to catch him over predicting twice definitely has been nice for my Cobalion in terms of longevity in this game. As here I'm just going to go for the Iron Head. I might as well. It's practically free at this stage in the game, and now I'm going to once again be able to go straight into my Torn T because it's quite frankly very free. With his Stealth Rocks not on the field, I'm able to regenerate off enough damage each time I come in that I'm gaining health, like a fair amount of health. This Flamethrower is only doing about 20 HP plus the burn damage to me. That's definitely not the 30% that Regenerator recovers. So yeah, that's definitely nice with the Torrent becoming healthier and healthier. As here he's going to pull the switch, I believe, once into the Tauros, as I do just go for a Hurricane, and unfortunately we miss. So yeah, Hurricane, not my favorite move in the game, not serving me too well this season. That damage on the Tauros would have definitely been nice in terms of getting it into range of Scolipede, as now it's not in range of Scolipede. I have to go do extreme measures to be able to get it in range of Scolipede, and I'm going to actually sack off my Torrent here. Now my Torrent was not EV to outspeed Tauros, but like I said, I was expecting him to be Choice Scarf anyways, and I'm going to use Mew here to confirm that and get damage off on this Tauros at the same time, as he is going to go for the Body Slam. If he was Life Orb, he would have almost been able to 2-hit KO me, but not quite, because he is not Life Orb. He only did just a little bit of damage with the Body Slam, so he's definitely Choice Scarfed, probably Jolly Choice Scarf to be able to outspeed my Zoroark, and that is information I will put in the bank for later on in the game. As here I'm just going to Roost Up, just to show him that this Tauros is not able to 1v1 my Mew, and now that he knows that, I expect him to switch into Sylveon to try to get a Recover off or a Wish up, and maybe try to, if he has Protect, actually try to Recover up, and I'm not going to let that happen. So I'm just going to go for the Mew turn into my Cobalion, and basically what that'll mean is I get a kill, because he doesn't have any switch-ins. Sylveon would go down, or the Weezing would go down to 2 Iron Heads as well. So this, yeah, like I said, this is going to be a kill for the Cobalion, and he is going to opt to sack off the Sylveon here, putting us now at, I believe, a 5-4 advantage at this stage in the game. I don't think I've lost another Pokemon. I might be wrong. You know, it's keeping track along the side of this battle, but off the top of my head, I think it's 5-4 in my favor. As now he's going to go into the Gigalith, and at this point, basically what I can do is I can just go for another Iron Head, because I'm still, I think, outside of range of an Earthquake from this, unless he's actually a little bit attack invested. And if he decides to sack off the Weezing here, which is somewhat what I expect him to maybe try to do to get his Excadrill in sooner in this game, then this is going to be 2-hit KO'd by 2 Iron Heads. As I do fire that off, and as you can see, it looks like he's at about 40%, maybe 35% or so, and this is definitely a 2-hit KO from this range because of the assistance of the Sandstorm, of course, helping put him into range of that 2-hit KO. And we're going to be able to take out the Weezing right here with the second Iron Head. So we're in a pretty good position, but with a Sand Up and Excadrill coming in, it becomes a situation where I have to start losing Pokemon now, because I have the Mew in the back at nearly full health, and his remaining Pokemon are Gigalith, Excadrill, and Tauros. Between those three, Mew is actually able to defensively wall all 3 of them as long as this Excadrill does not get a Swords Dance up. So it is now my utmost priority to ensure that Excadrill never gets +2 under Sand. As long as I can accomplish that, I am in good shape in this game. And I just remembered my Torrent died earlier, so it was actually 4-4 earlier, but regardless, we're here now. So I'm going to force out the Excadrill with my Mew, and he is going to go into his Gigalith here on this turn. Now what I go for on this turn is a Roost, because if he happens to be a Swords Dance Excadrill, by going for a Roost and getting myself back up to full health minus Sandstorm, it guarantees that I am outside of range of a +2 Earthquake, especially because he has been revealed to not have Life Orb on this Excadrill. So Roost was definitely my play. If he went for an SD on that turn, I would have been able to turn around and fire off a Foul Play, and would have been able to get rid of the Excadrill on the following turn, as it would be a guaranteed knockout from the range it was at. So here I'm just going to go hard into my Zoroark as the Gigalith decides to set up his Stealth Rock. So, you know, late game rocks, I guess it's never too late to get those rocks up, as I'm going to threaten him out. I very, very strongly contemplated going for a Memento here, and if I had done so as he went to Tauros, I would have just won the game right here. You know, I didn't make that play. I went for the Dark Pulse play, which is a little bit safer, just in case he left his Gigalith in against the Zoroark, and it really was a 50-50 in terms of if he would try to sack the Gigalith or sack the Tauros. But like I said, if I'd gone for the Memento there, I could have picked up the sweep with the Scolipede on the very next turn of the game, but it is what it is, as he's going to be able to knock out my Zoroark here with his Excadrill, as there's no way that Zoroark can take any hit from Excadrill. This thing is super frail. And yeah, down goes my Zoroark very quickly, but Drew got some screen time finally in this season, so there's that. But now I'm going to go into my Mew and once again follow the same procedure as before, as I can get myself up to as high of health as possible, guaranteeing that a +2 Excadrill cannot knock me out with an Earthquake, and at that point I am able to go for a Foul Play if he goes for an SD, or just 2 Foul Plays, and I would take out the Excadrill, and then Mew cleans up the game essentially for a 2-0 victory if I can accomplish that sequence of plays. But as you'll see here, as this whole thing unfolds, every time I get Mew up to a high enough amount of health to where I feel comfortable going for a Foul Play, I'm going to get flinched by an Iron Head, and it'll come there in just a second. He's going to go back into his Gigalith to try to reset his sand, and I'm going to take out the Gigalith with 2 Foul Plays here, as I believe I do go for a Foul Play on this turn, and then the following one will actually knock out the Gigalith. What I actually was strongly considering doing was just going for a couple of Roosts here to try to stall out a couple of turns of sand and make it a little bit easier for me to stall out the Excadrill, but I didn't want to put myself in a position where this Gigalith has Toxic and is able to put my Mew in a position where I'm no longer able to deal with a +2 Excadrill. So I thought it was in my best interest to go ahead and get rid of the Gigalith here. Now, if I was taking the most safe route toward victory in this game, just going for the 1-0 victory, I could have just started spamming Foul Play until I could get one off. That's not the play I go for, because differential is important in draft format, and what I'm going to try to do as he goes for the Iron Head is go for a Roost to get myself again up to full health, just in case he wants to go for a Swords Dance, which I'm still sitting here really expecting him to try to go for. Excuse me. And, you know, it's not what he's going for. So, you know, maybe I should have just been spamming Foul Play. And in hindsight, I guess that would have been a little bit smarter based upon how the rest of this plays out. And, yeah, so here's going to get the first flinch with Iron Head. So, you know, not a huge deal. I still have enough health back to recover. But we're going to go through this exchange for a few more turns here. I think we have at least 7 to 8 turns of this exchange between the Mew and the Excadrill. But, yeah, in hindsight, definitely my best play would have been to just keep spamming Foul Play, because by spamming Foul Play, eventually I will get one off. Like, almost certainly, even if he goes for an SD on my Mew, if I just spam Foul Play, then I knock out the Excadrill as soon as he goes for an SD, and I don't even need Mew to wall out anything else. So that was, I think that was a misplay. Yeah, this was definitely a misplayed endgame, I think, on my part, where, yeah, if I just spam Foul Play, Excadrill was guaranteed in range of Scolipede, I would have been able to at least win 1-0 in that regard, and if he did ever go for an SD, then I'd be able to knock out the Excadrill immediately and still get the 2-0. So here he gets another flinch, and this is the point where I realized, okay, no more messing around. We are just going to Foul Play this thing now until I die, just to make sure that we're going to be able to win this game with my Scolipede. As I guess I go for Roost one more time. I guess I'm pretty persistent here, huh, in the end game. I was really set on getting this 2-0 my way, but, you know, it's not going to end up happening that way. But I guess another thing to really note on this, and actually it just now clicked why some of these plays were happening, and, or, you know, it clicked at the time, but I'm remembering now, is that I was also trying to stall out the sand turns, as I did need to make sure sand was gone for Scolipede to be able to revenge the Excadrill. So I do apologize for neglecting to consider that in my commentary here, but that was the secondary thought process behind trying to stall out these turns as long as I possibly could with my Mew instead of just spamming the Foul Play. So now that sand is gone, I should be clicking the Foul Play as much as possible, which I think this is the turn where I finally do it. Okay, so I guess I was smart. So maybe not, maybe I wasn't really misplaying that much at all, quite honestly. No, I really wasn't, so yeah. Go me in the past. Anyway, so now we get off the Foul Play damage on the Excadrill, and he is going to be able to take me out with the Earthquake, and my Mew will go down, but the Excadrill is guaranteed in range of a Aqua Tail from my Scolipede. even if he happens to be a Pasho Berry on this extra drills. I still don't know what his item is, but he is guaranteed in range of this unless he is like a max HP extra drill, which in sand that can be kind of bulky. I wouldn't be too surprised by that, but we are able to knock out the extra drill with the Scolipede and pick up a very narrow 1-0 victory over PaPaSea in the New York Klinks. So of course, very good game to PaPaSea. Happy to be able to pick up the win and move to 5-2 plus, I believe, 9 differential, which is not too bad. We're still in 3rd place. I'm not going to spoil the result of Aster and Leo. You can go check that out for yourself, and maybe if something happens there, we might move up to 2nd place. So we'll just see. Gotta go check that out and see where we stand. But yeah, in terms of our record, we're still at least in 3rd place. Definitely in the playoff picture. If we win the rest of our games, we're guaranteed in. I think if we win one of the last 2, we're pretty much guaranteed in as well. So we're in a pretty good spot, but obviously my goal at this point is to finish the season 7-2. Next week we have a game against Aberforth and the Newcastle Umbreon, so definitely pretty experienced in playing against him. Played against him many times at this point, and we always have pretty crazy battles. More often than not, they are a little bit hacksy. Thanks, Abe. But hopefully we can dodge the hacks bug in both directions. I don't want hacks either, and maybe pick up a clean win next week against Abe as well, which will all but clinch our playoff spot, I would assume. So yeah, I think we're about done here. Once again, great game to my opponent. Make sure to go check him out. And I really do think he will start picking up a win or 2 at the end of the season. His draft is way too scary to not be able to pick up wins. There's so many offensive threats, and his prep, quite honestly, has been solid, especially these past few weeks, so I would not at all be surprised to see that happen. So yeah, we're about done here. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next week. Peace.